We are back! That's right, we are back! That's right, this is Football 101. That's right, I'm the Beetle, and we are officially back. This is show number, what is it? Show number 32? Show number 32. We are back, y'all. We are back in show number 32, Football 101. And it's entitled, Myles Garrett is a Chump, Part 1. That's right, Myles Garrett is a chump, Part 1. That's right. This is first of all, this is Football 101. This is show number 32. And wow, what happened after Thursday night football in which the Cleveland Browns managed to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won the game. But the story from the game is Myles Garrett went crazy. And we're going to dissect this. And got in a fight. Got in a fight with, what was it, 8 seconds left in the game? Something like that. With the quarterback of the Steelers? Ridiculous. We're going to break it down. So, here is show 32. Oh my God. We want to thank all our sponsors. We want to particularly thank all our sponsors. Of course, this show, these podcast shows, these Football 101 podcast shows would not be possible without Podbean giving us a showcase to premiere our Football 101 podcast shows. So thank you so much, Podbean. Thank you so much, Podbean. We also want to thank iTunes, Apple Podcasts. That's right, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Music, Spotify. And of course, I want to thank YouTube. There you go. We had to give it up to our sponsors all the time. They're the ones that kind of drive this. So, what is really going on in the NFL? Well, unfortunately, it's probably the worst thing that could happen in the NFL, and that was a fight at the end of a football game, Thursday night football, which has captured the national attention, in which the Browns finally won against the quality team of the Steelers. But what happened at the very end is Myles Garrett, a defensive end for the Cleveland Browns, got in a fight with Mason Rudolph, quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a nasty brawl in which Mason Rudolph and Myles Garrett were on the ground tussling with each other. First, Mason Rudolph in the pictures, you see that Mason Rudolph is trying to, looks like he's trying to take off Myles Garrett's helmet. Whether his hand got stuck in his helmet or not, I don't know. But they were tussling on the ground. And then, before you know it, they got up. The offensive linemen for the Pittsburgh Steelers were a little perplexed. Defensive linemen for the Cleveland Browns were perplexed. And then all of a sudden, Myles Garrett takes off. I'm just giving you a quick scenario. Takes off the quarterback's helmet, Mason Rudolph's helmet, and in the melee, and this is when it starts to get really bizarre, crazy, super violent, in which Myles Garrett, Mr. Mild-mannered Myles Garrett, 10 sacks, Myles Garrett. The person who said he wants to be Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. Number 1 pick in the draft a few years ago from Texas A&M, Myles Garrett. in complete rage, takes off the helmet of a quarterback. Think about this. Takes off the helmet of a quarterback. Myles Garrett is a defensive end. Mason Rudolph is a wiry quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Physically, there's no comparison. But yet Myles Garrett takes off the helmet of Mason Rudolph, flings it at Mason Rudolph, hits Mason Rudolph in the head. Wow. And continues to tussle. That's when the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman jumped in, wrestled Myles Garrett to the ground. In particular, Pouncey, the center, came in, protect his quarterback, and was hitting and punching Myles Garrett while on the ground. Pouncey saw his quarterback attacked without his helmet. Okay, I just painted the scenario right there. I slowed down. Let's back up right now. Wow. This is completely crazy. And this show is Myles Garrett is a Chump Part 1. Yes, Football 101 is coming out after I heard all the discussion late last night from all the news networks, ESPN, Football 101, all the news networks, sports-related networks, even mainstream networks. Don't even have sports, but they carried this. Where Myles Garrett, a big defensive end lineman, gets in a fight with the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, takes off his helmet, not just takes it off, but violently, aggressively, intently swings it at Mason Rudolph, hits him on top of the head. Again, that's the pictures. Now let me back this up as a former football player. Let me put this in a context as a football, not as just viewing the video. As I said, Football 101 is real football talk from a real football player. Now, let's back this up. One thing about football, like I've always said, it's violent. It's a nasty sport. It's physical. People get hurt. People get hurt. And in between those lines, during the game, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that most people not even aware of. However, here's the code of ethics as a football player. The code of ethics, no matter how much you hate the opponent, no matter how much that opponent can get under your skin, make you riled up, make you mad, no matter how much, there is an ethical guideline for all football players, whether it's in Pee-wee, middle school, high school, college, pros. Ethical guideline, that is, you do not get in a physical brawl fight with your opponent and particularly cause physical harm. That is what we learn, and I say we, football players, learn from day one. Do not physically harm another player on your team or opposing team at any time whatsoever. You simply do not do that. When you put on your uniform, you've abided by the laws of a football player in any league, and particularly in the NFL. The National Football League has a code of conduct, ethics, that every player must adhere to. They know it. Even in the heat of the battle, they know it because it's been ingrained into them as a kid before they even get to the pros. So here is part one. I am directly, Football One is directly calling out Myles Garrett, saying that you are a chump. You are a chump, Myles Garrett. I don't care what Mason Rudolph said, and everything gets said. Everything. Believe me, I've been called all types of names when playing football. Back in the day. All types of names. Purposely to get me riled up. To get under my skin. To make me lose focus. That's a part of the game. You know it's going to happen. As a football player, and let me just say this, as an African American football player, you know it's going to happen. Hello. So whatever was spoken during that last minute of the game, and obviously there was something going on before that last minute of the game. Right now, we don't know what happened. But I'm going to say clearly, whatever was spoken, because Mason Rudolph will receive punishment as well, because Myles Garrett just received punishment, actually suspension indefinitely from the NFL this morning. Rightly so. And Football 101 just says, it should be for 2 years. Not for just 6 games of this season and a few games next season. It should be for 2 years. At least. Myles Garrett should be indefinitely suspended for at least 2 years. I said it. Football 101 says 2-year suspension. It's that grave of an issue. And part 2 of this show, we'll get into a little bit of the legality of this. So this is very serious. This is just not a physical fight, because we see fights during training camp when 2 teams brawl against each other. And sometimes we see it, of course we see it during the regular season, because players are fighting for their jobs, fighting for playoff checks and everything. But what what Myles Garrett did was unspeakable. unspeakable. It was unethical as a football player. And I don't care about his apology at the end. I don't care about his apology when he was in the locker room. I don't care about his apology. I don't care. You cannot possibly lose yourself that much in a game as a defensive end taking on a quarterback and physically taking off his helmet and hitting him on top of his head. Could have been phenomenal. Could have been extremely physically detrimental to Mason Rudolph, who's already had concussions. Could have ended his career just like that. Right on national TV. It is that serious. And again, Myles Garrett should be suspended for at least 2 years. Period. Let's not justify this. I don't care what Mason Rudolph said. I don't care what was happening beforehand. I don't care. It's the code of ethics as a football player. Everybody who's put on the pads, everybody who's put on the uniform, everyone who's played a little bit of football knows that there's ethical guidelines. Myles Garrett broke those ethical guidelines as a professional, and he will pay the consequences. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, brother. That stretched over the line, over the limit. There is no justification. I've even seen some talk shows this morning trying to justify Myles Garrett actions. Excuse me? Justify? A big player like that taking off the helmet of a smaller quarterback? He's a quarterback. And taking the helmet and trying to hit the quarterback on his head with his own helmet. Myles Garrett, you're a chump. That's right. You are a chump. What is going on with Myles Garrett? Great record. Mild-mannered. Very likable. Kind of laid back. Kind of quiet. But he has, I'm just going to say this. Football 101 got to say this. Something is wrong when you lose it that fast in a game that you won, but for some reason you get in an altercation with this third string quarterback. Think about this. You get in a fight with a third string quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. What is that about? How can a third string quarterback cause you to react like that, Myles Garrett? Somebody talk to this young man. Yeah, I'm going directly. Someone talk to Myles Garrett, cause for whatever reason, this should not have happened. And I don't care what. Everyone gets in the heat of the battle. Every football player gets in the heat of the battle. Let's not fool ourselves. Every player who really loves the game, you get heated, baby. You get heated. But you do not cross the ethical guidelines. Myles Garrett crossed it, stepped on it, and unfortunately, I'll just say unfortunately, ruined his career. It is that simple. Sorry, Myles Garrett. You ruined your career. Because I remember you from the first, at the end of the preseason, and the first game you wanted, and you were on, you did a great job, several sacks, and you said, I want to be in Defensive Player of the Year. That's great. But you have to show respectability. You have to show camaraderie. You have to show ethical guidelines. And you have to be a professional football player. I don't know what's going on in your life, brother. And now I'm talking straight to Myles Garrett. Whether he hears this or not, or whether his network of friends, his entourage, and I don't think he has an entourage, but he does have family. So hopefully one of his family members will share this podcast show with Myles Garrett. Because, Myles, guess what? You got plenty of time on your hands now. You've been suspended indefinitely. So you got plenty of time on your hands. So someone in Myles Garrett family, tell him that Football 101 is strongly suggesting that you get help, brother. That's right, that you get help, brother. Because that is not called for. No matter what the situation is, my brother. We have to step up. And I say we, as a former football player and as an African American football player, we have to step up and show that we are professional at all times. Not only did you do yourself harm, you did the Cleveland Browns harm. The great institution of the Cleveland Browns. I am from Ohio. Yes, Football 101, the Beatle is from Ohio. Now you know how we feel from Ohio. It feels bad now, even worse. We get enough flack because of the Browns are not playing well. But now you add all of this on it. So yes, I am biased and I am mad because Myles Garrett made the Cleveland Browns look even worse. And yes, it falls next to the other person in charge of the Cleveland Browns, Freddie Kitchens. Someone must know that Myles Garrett has a temper. Someone must know that this brother is not playing right. He has some problems, some other issues. And it falls on the responsibility of the head coach, Freddie Kitchens. Get your players in check. Now. This is so sad. So, I'm not going to put everything, majority of it on Freddie Kitchens. It is ownership up. It is all owning to Myles Garrett. And that was disgusting. That was pathetic. That was lame. That was chump behavior. Chump behavior. So I'm just speaking, part one is about speaking as a former football player. There's an ethical guideline that all of us know that we will not do harm to another competitor. No matter how much we hate them. No matter how much we get riled up. No matter how violent the sport is. We will not take off a person's helmet and use it as a device to hurt, harm, and kill. Yes, hurt, harm, and potentially kill. That's what a helmet in the hand of a large defensive lineman propelling on the head of a quarterback. Think about that. It's just so scary. I want you to think about it, Myles. It's up to you. But you're suspended indefinitely. And I would say 2 years, brother. And you messed up Cleveland on top of that. Yeah. Yeah, Cleveland is mad. The folks in Cleveland are mad. Now we have to dig ourselves out of a bigger hole because of you, Myles Garrett. And I would just like to know, what would you say to the famous NFL player who happens to be with the Cleveland Browns? What would you say to Mr. Jim Brown on your actions? What would you say to Mr. Jim Brown for your actions as a Cleveland Brown? And just think about this. Who started the Cleveland Browns? Paul Brown from Ohio. That's tradition. You do not exhibit any tradition and respect for the Cleveland Brown institution. So that's the reason why this is very serious. This is part 1. This is the Beetle. This is Football 101. Man, disgusting. So Myles Garrett is a chump part 1. Yeah, you're a chump part 1. And we're going to go for part 2 in just a second. So there you go. This is Football 101. I didn't even know we were going to go this far. I swear, I didn't know. I just want to make a few statements. And it stretched all the way out to 22. How many minutes? 27 minutes? Oh my gosh. This is Football 101. We want to thank Podbean. We want to thank iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Music, and Spotify. And of course, we want to thank YouTube. Man, so email me at ejb88@92. That's ejb88@92. If you support me or disagree with me, bring it, because we are bringing it to Myles Garrett right now. This is Football 101. See you, folks. This is Football 101.